Good morning, and thank you, first of all, Melvin Campos, for hosting us here at this site where lives are literally turned around every single day and has been since 1912, I believe you've been in existence, 1912. It's a long time to be helping young people have more productive, more lives of engagement, lives of success. So I thank you for all you've done there. Also, Congressman Bowman, this is the result of many, many late-night conversations. I don't know how he got my cell phone, but all he does is call me and talk about what his district needs, and we have been talking about gun violence and the sensitivity, Congressman, that you bring to this as someone who works so closely with these children and created a new opportunity with the Cornerstone Academy for Social Action that you created. As a principal, you saw what was going on in their lives and in their families, and then what was happening on the streets. So I want to thank you for your leadership and what you've been doing for us in Washington, D.C., which is a place I used to represent. I used to spend time there, and I know it can be a little rough and tumble sometimes. So let's give a round of applause to Congressman Bowman here today. Delighted to see, my friend, the Majority Leader of the New York State Senate, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who also is someone who deeply believes in giving young people the opportunity to have a different outcome in their lives. And I look forward to entering into a new session together, one filled with cooperation and collaboration, and making sure that we put the needs of our constituents first, starting with the young children we're trying to save from a possible life of devastation as a result of gun violence. So that's what today is all about. Assembly Member Gary Pretlow, I thank you also for your leadership. Gary, thank you for your leadership. Assembly Member Sayed, so thank you for coming here as well. We had a great conversation just recently about the needs of your district as well. We're doing so much together. I know our Mayor, Sean Patterson Howard, is here. I want to give her a round of applause. We've worked very closely together on so many issues. I know that the Mayor of Yonkers may or may not be here. I didn't see right there. Mayor of Yonkers, Mike Spano, who hosted us when we did an event like this in July. We all gathered around a table and said, I don't just want to give this talk, I want to give this action. And as a result of that, we have found more ways to get more money into communities and into the organizations that are really making a difference. So I want to thank you for that. Also, Ken Jenkins is here, our deputy county executive is here. Let me see if I'm missing anybody. Don't want to do that. And our pastors who are here. I know we're also joined by Pastor Jay Gooding, and who'll be hearing from him, and Henry Terry. I also see Troy DeCohen is here as well, someone who I see at every event I go to, it seems. And thank you for all the work that you've done in your religious life and also in your home life. I'm very fond of your wife, who's now the head of Veteran Services for the state of New York. Viviana has now ascended to a tremendous position to use her experience in the military and helping veterans to help lift lives all over the state of New York. So why are we here? We're here because the specter of gun violence just simply will not go away. This is an issue I worked on when I was literally in my 20s as a staffer for Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan in Washington, D.C. And I was responsible for all the issues that dealt with the Judiciary Committee, gun violence, and others. And we were trying to simply do something such as banning what were called cop killer bullets, armor-piercing bullets. And it seemed like, of course, you would ban them. They have no purpose other than to harm someone who's there to protect our society. How could this be controversial? Well, it was a real wake-up call for me to see that there was even opposition to this back at a time when it was the most common-sense reform we could think of. So since that time, I have been steeled in the knowledge that this is something that society has to tackle. And even when I lived in Washington, it was the murder capital of our nation at the time. Right around the corner from where I lived, near the University of District Columbia, a triple homicide not far from where I was out walking my babies around the block. I understand that there are still people living today in the great state of New York who have that fear, who have that anxiety that their little kids going off to school could be collateral damage to a gunfight that's going on and a bullet could take down and snuff out their young life. That is going on in New York today, and it is not acceptable. We have to stand up and fight back and say our young people are worth saving. And how do we do that? How do we do that? We have to give them hope. Think about what's going on in their lives. It's the experience of a childhood. What are they exposed to? What's going on with their parents? Are they getting people who care about them to invest time in their lives? Are they getting mentors and teachers and programs like the Boys and Girls Clubs and the YMCAs and the YWCAs? Are these programs available for these kids to show them that there is another path forward so we can stop the generational cycle of violence which has consumed so many lives? And it's not just the lives of the victims. Think about the ripple effect of gun violence in society today. I was thinking about this as I was coming over. It reminded me of an oil spill. Do you ever see the pictures on television? Just there's some leak and there's a little bit of oil in the water. And yes, it kills the fish around it. But then it doesn't go away. It continues to spread out. And it affects the parents and the siblings of either the victims or the perpetrators. And then it starts going out, and the clergy members who have to pick up the pieces and sometimes bury the young people that they had seen grow up in their congregation, and the pain it causes them. And that pain it causes the healthcare workers who cannot believe it's one more Saturday night and they're dealing with another gunshot victim. It spreads. It's sinister. It's evil. It affects so many people's lives. And that's why, as a state and as a society, we have to stop this. And how do we do that? First of all, I will spend the resources it takes. That's why I'm having conversations with our community leaders and people who are parts of programs like SNUG and other very successful programs that I've seen work other places. Sometimes you just need that person, that adult who reaches out to a child in middle school and say, don't end up like me. Don't follow the path I did because there's a better way. And the violence disruptors and interveners are truly the ones who have that genuine message of, I was there, I lived your life, and you do not have to end up like I did, perhaps spending time in jail, or worse, ending up with an injury or death. That does not have to be a logical path of life for children just because they're born in a certain zip code where gun violence is prevalent. We have to reach in and pull them out. And it's the community organizations that know how to do this. And it's the clergy. And it's the people that they see in their everyday lives. They're the ones we have to get resources out to. And that is why in my first, I think today, first 3 months on the job as your governor, we have allocated over $30 million to help create jobs and alternatives and to give people a different outcome in their lives. And today I'm very proud to announce an additional $6.2 million is being spent in the state of New York to get it in the organizations that are making a difference. And two of those organizations, Westchester Family Services of Westchester and Peace is a Lifestyle. These are two organizations that have not received this funding before, and we are trying to be creative. Get it out to other individuals who know exactly what needs to be done. But we've already spent youth engagement program, workforce training and development. No child is too young to have them start thinking about what they want to do in life and let them know that they can have a job, that can take care of themselves and someday a family. Every child has that available to them. They just don't see it all the time. And sometimes if things are so bad at home and they're not feeling part of a loving environment, they go out to the streets. And sometimes that gang ends up being their family substitutes. And they're getting that sense that they matter, that they have value by being part of this gang. We have to show them that, no, that is not the path for you. You can lead a productive life. You can have a job. You can buy something, a house, a car. You can live an entirely different life and get a good education. Education is the key. Our children need to have a better education starting out in life, whether it's preschool, early childhood education, all the way on up to high school, and let them say, if you want to go to college, it's available. If you don't want to go to college, there are fantastic job training programs and jobs that are waiting for you today. This message has to come from every one of us as adults. We have a moral responsibility to every child that's born to help let them see it doesn't have to be that bad. You can get out of this. You can escape. You can show your younger siblings that they look up to you and say, you got it done. You left this environment and you became a better, stronger person. That's what I'm focused on. That's what I believe in. That's why I'm here today, to lift up others and let them know there are other alternatives for them. So we're going to continue these investments. We're going to continue making sure that we give other options to young people. Also, everything I can do to pick up a pen and sign a piece of legislation that'll fight back, you can guarantee I'll do it. We just literally banned ghost guns 2 weeks ago. That banned them and said, the legislature, the Senate, led by our majority leader, the Assembly, led by Carl Heastie, they and their members came up with legislation that's smart. And I don't have to play politics with everybody's legislation and extract a pound of flesh to get it done. I'll just do what's right. And signing that bill was the right thing to do, as well as creating an institute, a firearm violence research institute. Never before did anyone want to study the root causes or where it's happening. What are we afraid of? Solve a problem, you have to understand it. Get the data. Target your approach. Be smart about it. It's like fighting a pandemic. We have a pandemic of violence in our streets, and we'll treat it like we're fighting this COVID pandemic, with science and data and smartness. That's how we're going to tackle this. As you can tell, this really upsets me. This is a tough topic to talk about, because we can sit in this room secure, but what's going to happen tonight? What's going to happen when the sun goes down? What's going to happen when someone gets mad at somebody and they pull out a gun? And we just all went through the specter of the Rittenhouse trial. What was he doing with the gun in the first place? That gun never should have been in his possession. Never should have been. From now on, I want every one of us to commit that we'll do everything in our power, all the influences we have, all the sphere of influence, all the people we touch, and every conversation you have, talk about what are we going to do to help save these kids? How will we keep them from the specter of gun violence? How can we lift them up? And I will be your partner. You help me see the way. I'll never pretend that I have all the answers. That is not how I operate. I know you have the answers, and 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 you have the answers. I want those answers. I'll put money behind it. I'll put the resources behind it. I'll put the people behind it. Because one of the legacies I want to have of my administration is that there were more lives saved because we stood up and fought back and saved the lives of our young people. We can get this done. We can get this done. I know we can. Thank you very much. And with that, I want to bring up a true champion, someone who, again, has been tireless in his pursuit of finding answers, finding solutions to help this crisis, and that is our Congressman Jamal Bowman. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Governor, for being here. Thank you for your commitment to this issue. Thank you for answering all my late-night texts and all my late-night calls on this issue. I promise you, Madam Governor, you're not the only one that I'm calling late night or reaching out to late night. I think Mayor Spano can come up here and attest to some of the text messages he's received from me on this issue. I know Mayor Sean Patterson Howard can also attest to those messages as well. I know Dr. Hamilton, the superintendent of Mount Vernon Schools, can attest to those calls as well. Joanne Dunn and so many others in this audience, because I know from my personal and professional experience, there is not one individual mayor or legislature or educator or council person or congressperson or governor that can solve this crisis alone. It has to be all of us working in deep, committed collaboration on a consistent basis to make sure we save the lives of every single person in our communities. If there are no gun deaths in Bronxville and Scarsdale and Rye, then there shouldn't be any gun deaths in Mount Vernon, Yonkers, and the Northeast Bronx. And we are often told the narrative that there must be something inherently wrong with the people there. That is 100% false. The people of Mount Vernon, the people of Yonkers, the people of the Northeast Bronx, the people of neglected areas of New Rochelle are brilliant artists, scientists, mathematicians, entrepreneurs, design thinkers, architects, engineers, whatever it is that they want to be. And it is on us as elected officials and community leaders to create the pathways and the pipelines and the infrastructure so that they can access their full potential. And there's so many of us are already doing the incredible work. Huge shout out and recognition to Henry Terry from SNUG, who comes from the streets, who's been in the streets doing work for our most vulnerable people. And it's not just our young people, it's not just our children and our teenagers. There's many young adults as well, and many older adults as well, that we cannot write off. Because if we can bring them back in and provide the holistic supports that they need, we could put them on the right track as well. And that's a key word there. The word is holistic, because oftentimes, because we're triggered by the events that take place, we turn to law enforcement for answers. We turn to parents for answers. We turn to education for answers. But if we don't provide the wraparound services, centering those who are most vulnerable in the middle, while giving them the resources that they need, we're going to continue to have this plague in our communities. And this plague doesn't come from people who have a deficit. It comes from a history of government neglect and a lack of resources that the government has brought into Black and brown communities. Our communities were redlined on purpose, by design, and undervalued simply because they were Black and brown. Crack cocaine was brought into our communities. When the guns come from out of state into Mount Vernon, Yonkers, and the Bronx, they skip Scarsdale and Bronxville and Rye and come straight here. Why? Because we are the people who deal with the most historical, complex trauma, and we are the most vulnerable, so we are more likely to pick up a gun. But there's another answer, and there are other pathways that we can create for our people. And we have to do it by taking a multifaceted approach. And the governor has shown a commitment to invest the resources in a multifaceted approach. That includes mental health supports with mental health professionals that are available in our communities. That includes academic and education supports, because when you look at the people who are more likely to commit gun violence, many of them have either been identified as having dyslexia or having some other form of special needs. So we need the proper academic supports. Academic supports. We also need the proper vocational supports to put people on a pathway to careers and entrepreneurship. And then finally, we need the family supports, because oftentimes we're talking about the individual in isolation, but we're not talking about the family dynamic. So we have to provide the supports to the family. And we cannot use the excuse that we don't have the resources. That is unacceptable. If we have the resources for bombs and missiles and jets and planes, we got to have the resources for the most vulnerable people in our communities. As you all know, the House passed the Build Back Better Act this past Friday. It hasn't passed the Senate yet. So we're going to need everybody's voice in here to put pressure on the Senate to make sure it passes the Senate. Because not only does that bill invest $2.5 billion in violence reduction specifically from a health and human services perspective, it also makes the largest investment in public housing in U.S. history. It also makes the largest investment in green infrastructure in U.S. history. It also provides us finally the opportunity to negotiate drug prices, so insulin prices will be going down and cancer drug prices will be going down, which is tremendous for our seniors. In terms of early childhood education, it's the largest expansion of public education in our country since the public high school. So when we talk holistic, it's investing in all of these areas that will dramatically reduce incidents of gun violence. And let me also say this, it is not just gun violence. It is the presence of violence and the normalizing of violence in every aspect of our community. You know, I'll close with this. shortly after being sworn in on January 3rd, I was introduced to an insurrection on January 6th. And I'm thankful that I can stand up here and laugh about it, but it was no laughing matter. 5 people died during that insurrection. Just to put it in context, it was the first attack on the U.S. Capitol since the War of 1812 by the British. First attack on the U.S. Capitol since the war in 1812. That was my introduction to Washington. Part of my introduction to being a representative here was the overdose death of a 15-year-old in Yonkers on fentanyl, and the mayor and I spoke about this. When the schools opened back up after COVID, in back-to-back weeks, and this is what made me call the governor, there were back-to-back weeks of kids being stabbed right out front of their schools. And when you dig deeper into the kids, these are children with special needs who haven't had their needs met. So again, and Dr. Bostic and I have talked about this before, there needs to be a holistic approach. And my office is committed to working in collaboration with everyone in this room. We need each other, and this is a problem that we can solve together, and this is a problem that we will solve together. I wouldn't be standing here if it weren't for a Boys and Girls Club, and if it weren't for people like you serving as mentors in my life. I wouldn't be standing here. I would be dead right now, and many of my friends are. So I'm blessed and humbled to work in collaboration with you to do this work. Thank you all so much. Please, and it is my honor to bring up someone else who I call all the time, who's always been very helpful to me personally, not just in terms of resources, but just as a mentor. Congresswoman, excuse me, not yet. Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins of the New York State Senate.
Thank you so much, Congressman. So, I am really happy to be here because what we are talking about is an investment in community health, community safety, and an investment that we together, as the Congressman said, can make if we are focused. So, Congressman, thank you. You know, when I hear about all the crazy times, nobody texts me if they know me at crazy times. So, Congressman, thank you for, being who you are and making sure that people understand that your presence is not by accident and that you came with a purpose. And it is a pleasure to be a colleague in government with you. And of course, to the governor. My entire direction as it relates to why I do this is to make things better. That's it. I know that we can do better. I know we can invest in our children at a young age and continue to pour that investment into them so that the conversations that we are having today will not be the conversations of tomorrow. I know that who is sitting in these spaces matter. And I am so happy that the governor has deemed it important to make sure that education, stemming gun violence, creating a pathway is what has to happen right now in New York State. And I am happy to partner with you in not only now, but in the next budget to make sure we continue to make good on those investments. Thank you, Governor. So I have a bit of housekeeping because I see the mayor of Yonkers, I'm from Yonkers, I'm my home turf, so I gotta shout out, obviously, my mayor and my assemblyman, but let me shout out my pastors too, Pastor Coleman, Messiah, and Dr. Pastor Jim Bostic, Nepperhan Community Center. And because I represent him, I will certainly give a shout out to Reverend Richardson as well, in addition to the other clergy here. We are proud of what's happened since we have taken the majority in New York State. And I know I'm in Senator Bailey's district, and he can't be here, but give a shout out to Senator Bailey, who has been, an incredible advocate. But since we've been in the majority in 2019, we have passed no less than 15 sensible gun laws. Some that the governor has signed again, stopping ghost guns, making sure we look at gun violence as a public health crisis, making sure that we have red flag laws so that if there's a problem, someone can my neighbor's stashing guns and there's a problem, go look at that. Making sure a background check is long enough for people to actually check to make sure that someone is not a liability with a gun. Even sharing mental health records from other places. These are common sense things. Lock up your guns. Make sure that they're not in the hands of people, because people don't even talk about the 24,000 who died of suicide. So we have not a crisis just here, a national crisis around guns. And even here they're talking about bail reform and so. No, this is a national crisis. It is a national crisis. In 2020, 20,000 Americans lost their lives to a gun, in addition to the 24,000 who have committed suicide with a gun. So I am happy to be in a state that recognizes that we must do something and has the leadership to actually create a model. I'm happy to have been part of majority back in 2009 that brought SNUG to New York State. And I saw my Yonkers SNUG people come in, and Sean Patterson used to head that up. But we understood that we can interrupt violence. And we understood the people in the community are essential to working with the police to make sure that happens. So I'm here today to thank all of you, to thank you for being those boots on the ground. Thank you for every area that you come from. I see Belinda Miles, who's the president of Westchester Community College when we talk about education, and I think our superintendent of schools here, Mount Vernon, is here as well. It does take a village. And frankly, the fact that we are here today, committed to be that village, bodes very, very well for the future. So we will continue to work together, and as we end, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Let's be thankful for what we have, and let us build on it so that our children will have a tremendous future. Thank you so much.
Please welcome to the podium Director of Community Outreach of Jacobi Medical Center, Pastor Jay Gooding.
Can we just give the Lord a hand clap this morning, amen? Dr. Richardson, I always like to put the thing that we do. When a wife loses a husband, she's called the widow. When a husband loses a wife, he's called the widower. The dictionary defines children who loses parents as orphans. But there's no name, no definition for a parent who loses a child, except pain. Too many times I have sat with parents and eulogized young people that have died at the hands of gun violence. Jacobi Hospital, we stand up to violence, and we have 3 catchment areas within the boundaries of the Bronx, in the 43rd Precinct, the 47th, and the 49th Precincts. In our inception 7 years ago, Stand Up to Violence was one of the first hospital-based sites in the country. We originally started as a 3-component response team of our hospital responders, our outreach workers, and our community awareness part. We have since added a 4th social component that deals with the trauma of gun violence, designed for victims and their families, helping them with grief and healing. but also our outreach workers as well. They too face trauma on a daily basis. Over the past 7 years of our existence at Jacoby Hospital, we have seen a drastic reduction in gun violence in all our catchment areas, some by more than 50%. My role as Director of Community Outreach has been to engage our community, to realize that we seek an environment of peace and safety. We have that in common unity for safer communities. We're able to have the participation of our faith-based community, as well as our elected officials and community leaders, to join us in helping to put the neighbor back in the hood, to help build safer neighborhoods. And so today we recognize the significance of We Are Better Together. And so on behalf of Jacoby Hospital Center to Violence, I want to thank you, Madam Governor, and to our majority leader, and to our congressmen, and to all of you that have gathered here today. And we say thank you for the resources to help us. I close by saying this. Many times as I travel around the city, I'm often asked, well, if SNUG and Cure Violence sites are working, why do we see so much gun violence still that's plaguing our streets? My answer to them is very simple. Just imagine if SNUG wasn't there. Just imagine if Cure Violence wasn't there, what our statistics would be. Our prayers is that God will continue to cover our city, our state, and watch over all of us. And so again, we say on behalf of Jacoby Hospital, thank you for your support today. God bless.
Please welcome to the podium Outreach Supervisor of Westchester Family Services, Henry Terry.
Good morning, everyone. First and foremost, I'd like to salute this panel of giants that you all have me up here sitting with, and say thank you to all of them for their contributions in bringing this work that we do every day to life, especially you, Madam Speaker, especially you. She's one of the reasons that SNUG exists here in the state of New York. SNUG is a great organization, a grand organization, and the Department of Criminal Justice, along with other programs like Family Services of Westchester, Youth Shelter of Westchester, the Westchester Youth Bureau, we all partner together to fight this thing called gun violence. We have a team, I don't want to say a staff or a crew, but we have a team of outreach workers that are actually the boots on the ground that everyone is talking about. We're going out into the community and we're mediating conflict. We're mediating conflict through conflict resolution. We're interceding, we're identifying, and we're interrupting the norms that our young people have fallen into the traps of. And it's not an easy task, but we get up, we get out, and we go get it every single day because we love our community. Who are we without our community? We're no one. And in order to save our community, we have to save our youth. In order to save our community, we have to work together. We have to be on one accord. Brother Bowman, I want to thank you because ever since he's been in office, he didn't wait for us to reach out to him or try to get in contact with him. He made it his business to come to our office. And not only did he come to our office, he brought his whole team to our office because he wanted to know what was going on in our community, where it was going on in our community, and who were the people involved. And it's going to take you knowing those things in order to make a difference. And our outreach staff, this is what we do every day. We intercept, we intercede, and we change the mindset of those that are involved in the violence that is plaguing our community. Family Services Westchester, they're our mother agency. DCJS, thank you for buying into our communities. Thank you for buying into our youth. Thank you for buying into our fight, because that's what this is. This is a fight, and we're fighting for life. For life. I'm getting ready to close, and I'm going to ask everyone here to do me one favor. Please stand. I take you standing today as your commitment to join SNUG, to join DCJS, to join Family Services of Westchester, to join our partners in the community like Youth Cred, who are turning young men who have been in trouble into credible messengers going back into their community to help bring resolve. I take you standing today as your promise to be a part of this fight. No longer sit by and watch. Please get involved, because it takes us all. As you heard the governor said, this is not a one-person's fight. It truly takes a village. And all of us standing here, we are that village. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Please have a good day.